Ajay, I want you to expand upon the insurance sector. It's very, very important. It's the present and future of India. How do we take it to levels where we're actually on par with the US insurance?
I think the insurance industry in India is severely underpenetrated. If you look at insurance ownership, tends to be very low.
Correct.
I think insurance tends to be typically bought as a tax-saving instrument in India, or as an instrument that does some kind of savings and investment for you. Whereas the primary purpose of insurance should be protection. And I think if you look at the average value of protection today, I would say it's abysmal compared to what is required by people to to be able to protect their life stage and their lifestyle. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow this business.
But how do we, I'm sorry to interrupt, how do we educate the consumer?
It's a long process because I think financial literacy in general, I think, is an issue in the country.
Okay, in what way? Why do you say that?
I think if you look at all products, if you look at the ownership of most financial products, I think you'll find it low. I think if you take bank accounts, 30% of people have a bank account.
Right.
So definitely, I think financial literacy tends to be an area that we all need to focus on as a country. And we've been saying that there are different ways in which we need to address this issue. Maybe you start introducing this as a subject in schools and colleges, so people are exposed to it early enough.
I like that.
Maybe part of the CSR budgets could be set aside for financial literacy. And I think some of the distributors and the agents who actually touch customers, they should be better aware and better prepared to be able to educate the end customer. But I think that's a journey we have to travel if we really want to make...
Okay, expand more upon the insurance sector. How do we educate the average consumer, the average customer?
So I think insurance in many ways has to be looked at as an expense to be able to protect something that you have today. You can't always look at it as an investment and therefore what do I get from it. I think you have to see, every individual today is a member who's an asset to a family and to a group of people. They represent a stream of income, and that stream of income is put at risk if something happens to that individual. So the minute you look at it that way and therefore look at insurance as an expense to protect that, then I think the mindset becomes a very different mindset, and then you don't compare it to other forms of investment per se, but you start looking at it as something that you must have at the core before you start building other assets.
But how do we educate the consumer? That is the point. It's correct what you're saying.
So I think, like I said,
how do we generate an interest to do that, or a desire?
So I think it works in multiple ways. I think, like I say, you have to start with some part of the formal education doing that. I think the distribution channels that do it have to do it. I think we need much more on TV and in newspapers talking about these issues. So I think when people start building their financial portfolio, protection almost has to be the first building block.
See, that's a very good point. You're right. For
because you can't start. You can't start thinking about building, a 44-floor skyscraper without a foundation. And the foundation for anything is protection.
Is protection, So do you feel now you have a tie-up with a South African firm, MMI? Do you see yourselves heading towards that?
So we have a tie-up in the life insurance side with Sun Life of Canada. They're an amazing firm. They're very large, very successful, and a wonderful partner to us.
It's one of the best.
Yes, clearly. And our health insurance space, which is what you're referring to, is a joint venture with MMI of South Africa. That again is an area we see as absolutely a huge opportunity.
Health and life,
and health and wellness in a sense, because if you look at it, Indians are spending 60 to 70% of health expenditure out of their own pocket. Now that's a large amount, especially when you start looking at the inflation for health expenditure. And therefore somebody who can provide a system that protects you from that expenditure and allows you to actually cut it down over a period of time, which is where wellness comes in. I think we see a lot of opportunity in that space.
Now would that be, when you talk about health and wellness, in India or even if it's international?
I think internationally it's already kind of picked up. If you look at the South African market, which we've looked at for some time, I think it's a very big opportunity there. The UK has a very big opportunity in terms of wellness. So I think it is something that will catch on in India because we have a younger population. I think they're getting much more aware of what health means and how important health is as an asset for an individual. And I think that's a wonderful background to kind of launch a business like this.
Interesting. Ajay, for you, what would you say is the most exciting sector that you find where there's a lot of growth, where it interests you?
See, it's very difficult for me to say that. It's like saying which of my children do I like more. It's
sweet.
I think all businesses have tremendous opportunity. We are just so underpenetrated in any business line. It's I see opportunity everywhere I look, and I think optimism is the one thing that brings me to work every morning, because I see there's just so many things you can do over here in the financial services space, and I think that will remain for some years to come.
Interesting.